Hey, how you doing? This is John, and welcome to John's Long Box. I'm going to do a new series now called Avengers Assemble, and I'm going to take out Avengers comics. I'm going to start with issue 150 because it's just a good recap issue, good round number, and I want to go around up to like issue 200. It's kind of like what I'm doing on Sunday Comics. Sunday Comics kind of turned into the X-Men, so this is going to be Avengers Assemble. I don't know when. I'm just doing it today because they didn't plow. I'm trapped at home, so I figured I'd do a live video tonight. There's like 2 feet of snow on my street. There's once you get to the main streets, apparently it's nice, but I can't drive. It's 2 feet of snow on the roads. I live in like a little, you go down a little bit of ways off the beaten track. So it's just a little. We're all stuck. All my neighbors are like, how can we get out of here? So my wife called the town, waiting for a plow. But tomorrow, hook or by crook, I gotta get to work. Job was shut down yesterday, but today I'm not driving. You guys who've been around for a while, you know that I had a serious car accident. I'm not dealing with driving in the snow, especially 2 feet. So there we go. This is my new background that I'm going to bring out every time I do Avengers Assemble, and then I will bring up the comic. So that's what we're going to talk about. But let's check out some of these comments. We got RRTN. He says CT. M4. We got Zach10 with the drive-by blessing. How you doing? What happened to the stream yesterday? Yesterday I was on Yang Zhao Zen. I can never say his name right. His channel. And he uses Restream. And I tried to do it on both channels, and I hit the wrong button, and it was 30 seconds of me going, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know. And then my wife had, have you tried this button? So I just deleted it. So if you want to see a 2-hour-long fun conversation, go to Yao Yang Zhao's channel, Yao Zhao Yang, and check it out. It was fun. It was fun. We talked everything from comic books to carpentry, electrical work, and role-playing. Lots of role-playing games. So here we go. So for those of you who are new, don't go on. This is a series. I'm going to look at Avengers comics in order to around issue 200. Okay. So this is issue 150. I think the very first Avengers issue I bought was 124. I think so. I just, got it randomly, whatever. I honestly think I got it like a 3-pack at a Toys R Us. It came like with Avengers on one side, Defenders in the other, and then probably like, I don't know, like Richie Rich in the middle. Like that's what these stores used to do. They would just put an unmarketable comic in the middle, but you paid like nothing for it. So that was that. And they were older, they were older comics. And then I started collecting, I think 154 or 153 is the first Avengers I bought, and then never missed an issue for decades. So then I went back and I bought collections. So this was in a collection, and you could see every comic in the collection was like this good shape or better. So I did a really good job getting. So We're getting this collection. So that your classic says Avengers Assemble. Oh, I like that Brainiac. I like that Brainiac. And so here we go. So this is Avengers 150. We got the Vision over here in the corner box. Earth's Mightiest Heroes. This is it. The special 150th anniversary special, which is kind of weird because it's not. If it's the 150th anniversary special, that means it's been around for 150 years. You know, anniversary means once a year. We always use the word anniversary wrong. It doesn't bother me that much, but I always note that you're not using the word right. So, you know, it should have been the 150th monthly issue special, but we use the word anniversary wrong. Annis means year, anniversary means once a year, whatever. All this plus the usual Marvel mind-stunning action, it says down there by the feeds. So we got all the Avengers running around. We got Iron Man, we got Moondragon, Yellow Jacket. What a great costume. That is one of the best costumes in all comics right there. The Scarlet Witch, Captain America. I'm trying to think of who did this cover. Marcus is probably watching the professionals. We got Thor, we got the Beast, we got Hellcat. Character that I was very fascinated with because Hellcat, and the Vision, Wasp, you know, but Hellcat benefited from what I call the Boba Fett syndrome. The Boba Fett syndrome is you don't really see a lot of the character, so your mind fills in the details and makes them cooler than they actually are. And that, you know, Hellcat wasn't around a lot, so she benefited. You know, my mind filled in all the details. You know, there was a lot of characters that I did that with. And then when I got to know them, maybe I didn't like them as much. But there we go. So for those of you who have never seen my Sunday comics, what I do is I'll talk about the comic, I'll address the chat, I'll talk about the comics, address the chat, back and forth. And then when the comic's over, I'll keep talking as long as the chat is engaging. Okay, so in the chat, if you collect the Avengers, let me know. Have you read this comic? Have you seen this comic before? Is this the first time you've ever seen it? You know, I'm kind of curious about all that kind of stuff. So what year is this? 1976. It says August 1976, all the way down here in the Indicia. So I'm going to treat this as, you know, people's new videos. So this is called the Indicia or the Indicia. I think it's pronounced Indicia. That's like all the legal ramifications. That has the date, you know, copyrights and everything like that. And you know, you know, so this is like very important. It tells you the subscription rate and things like that. This is called a splash page. It's usually, well, a splash page by definition has to have one panel on the page, and it's usually the first. It doesn't always have to be the first. And here we got the credits. So it's chronicled by Steve Englehart, Stan Lee, the storytellers. George Perez, Jack Kirby are the pencilers. John Tartag, Duffy Vorland, Dick Ayers are the inkers. Denise Wall and Artie Simek are the letters. And Irene Vartanoff, there's a name I don't really know. Irene Vartanoff, the colorer. And Archie Goodwin, the editor. The editor. Avengers Assemble. So look at this. This is, you know, this is some early George Perez, right? This is going to be tough because we got 2 artists and 3 inkers. So this is going to be tough. But it's weird, but I recognize the doors for George Perez. Yeah, they tell you the subscription rate. $3.50 for 12 issues, Zoctan. I know I just saw that comment just as I looked up. So we got the Ant-Man and the Wasp. They were flying these flying ants. They're returning. They were injured. And still waiting on word for some of the inside Avengers. So just in time, for a Avenger file for a very special sesquicentennial celebration, 150 issues of comics favorite heroes. So what's going on? They just finished up a story, a big run, and Avengers do this every once in a while, and seems like Legion of Superheroes do it every once in a while. It's the roster issue. They're going to figure out the new roster. So that's, you know, so this is a good issue to start the series with because it's 150. It's a good round number. It's them reforming the Avengers, and it's also one of those, like, it's like a clip show. It'll give us some of the Avengers past in glorious four color detail. So let's see, we got Fabrizio Aiello is here. He says Avengers while I draw. Perfect. Fabrizio Aiello is the everyman behind Horace H. Hoover. Horace H. Hoover is a 5-issue series on Gloomy Wood Productions. That's his comic company. And it's up to issue 4. I just read. I love issue 4. It is an occult investigator operating out of is it the 20s or 30s Manhattan? I forget. Just such a good, fun comic. Occult. The closest I could compare it to is like a more humorous like Hellboy. I'm just infatuated with the character. Fabrizio, he's okay. But check it out at horsehhoover.com, and you can pick up the back issues. So I don't want to touch the camera, and I don't want to bring things too close because that always ruins the focus. So here we go. What's it say? Speak for yourself. Boba Fett is super cool. One of the very popular characters. Yeah, it's too bad he's only in like a couple of minutes in Empire Strikes Back, and then he got taken out in Return of the Jedi down into the Sarlacc pit, never to be seen again. I always wondered if they would ever make a Star Wars movie after Return of the Jedi. I guess somewhere in an alternative use. I mean, wouldn't it be horrible if like Disney bought Star Wars and made like bad movies and TV shows? But thank goodness there's only 3 Star Wars movies. I've seen this comic a few times, though never read it. Okay. I already told you the subscription rate. Of course, tats. That's why there were so many question marks on the cover. Mystery roster top. Oh, that's why. Okay. I thought you were talking about tattoos. So let's turn the page. So we got a crowd of people. The media is showing up at the Avengers Mansion. Nobody's noticing Ant-Man and the Wasp because they're flying on the size of ants. So over here, the cops are keeping the crowd away. Like I said, the Ant-Man and the Wasp are flying by, and boom, they get big. It's as if they just appear, What's the story here? You tell us. You, Yellow Jacket. Sam Ruthers, CBS News. Are you a new Avenger? New Avengers. We are the Avengers. We just got out of the hospital. Why? What's missing? There's a report 30 minutes ago that your team had closeted itself inside to choose a new roster. Oh, yeah, we were starting to get that when I got hurt. Look, took them long enough. Whatever. So now the Avengers are going in, and you can see this is some George Perez. And I don't know which one of the anchors or the inkers are working on this, but this is not the best. George Perez, this is early in George Perez's career. As far as I know, he was working on this, and he started in Marvel in Deadly Hands of Kung Fu. I think he did like a couple of like fill-ins, but his first continuous series was the Sons of the Tiger in Deadly Hands of Kung Fu. And you could see some sparks of later George Perez. First off, let me take a sip of delicious Tim Hortons coffee. This was perfectly brewed. I'll take an aside to say, I get a Farberware percolator. It's all metal. Coffee never touches any plastic. And I have to say, once coffee touches plastic, it tastes weird. My wife bought a craft, so like she's always afraid of me burning down the house, like leaving the coffee pot unplugged. So I'd make coffee and I'd pour it into this craft, but the craft inside was plastic and it made the coffee taste like garbage. So we compromised and I bought a metal thermos. So I make the coffee, pour it to the thermos, just so we can unplug the coffee pot. No plastic touches my coffee. I have one of those Keurigs, and it just tastes like garbage. It just tastes like garbage. It's in a plastic cup. It boils. It like the coffee maker is plastic, and the coffee just tastes like chemicals. Coffee in a metal Farberware percolator into a ceramic cup. Call me crazy, but that's the way to drink coffee. And now back to our scheduled program. Let's, like I said. Okay, so they just got out of the hospital. I forget exactly what happened to them, so they're coming back now. it's been, I don't know if it's been retconned or if it's been like at the time, but Hank Pym had like mental issues. So when he was in his Yellow Jacket persona, he was like acting more dashing and everything like that because he's afraid of losing Janet Van Dyne. So he kind of acts more arrogant and cocky. And then they later on made it so that he's bipolar. Kind of makes sense. So we got Jarvis. They're going into the Avengers Mansion. Nothing too exciting. And now we're over here. Okay, let's adjust. You know what? This background is this background too distracting? Should I go back to my normal background? All right, you guys tell me. So anyway, Avengers meeting in progress. So we got Thor, and I like this. I like that they have symbols on the chairs. Iron Man's got the the Ferris symbol, or the symbol for man rather. Captain America's got the star. I'd like to see all the rest of the chairs, see what their symbols, because there's no symbols over here. You could only see Iron Man and Captain America. Like that wouldn't be right if they're the only one who has symbols on their chair. Everybody needs symbols. So you can see all the Perez, machinery in the background. I love all that stuff. I love all that stuff. I'll make it bigger. And now they're sitting around talking about their roster. Oh yeah, okay. I just got distracted by this. So here they're sitting there and they're asking Iron Man what happened. He goes, I made a new face mask. So if you remember, Iron Man had the face mask with the nose. Now he's got a new one. So they're addressing continuity. Yeah, you should have seen. Yeah. So he's like, I see you made a new face mask. He goes, yeah, I should make one to hide your ugly face. Ha, ha, ha. Men get together and bust each other's chops. I call this meeting to order. And now, here we start out for new Avengers. We got Beast, we got Hellcat, we got what's Moondragon, and they're all sitting around. And now we got the first shock of the issue. And yet, to commence our deliberations, I am forced to announce my leave of absence. Oops, we don't see that. So Thor is quitting the team. Dun, dun, dun! And they're doing comic books the correct way, turning the page on a cliffhanger. This is the last panel. Why is Thor leaving? I got to turn the page. We got to delay gratification, and there's probably going to be ads. That's how they use the ads as part of the experience in the comic book. But I'm going to delay gratification by addressing the chat. Yeah, they should add singing and dancing to Star Wars. There you go. Yeah, shame we only got 3 Star Wars films. Look, he's got, yeah. It's only 3 Star Wars films and 2.5 good movies. Once they leave Jabba's palace, Empire, Return of the Jedi goes downhill. They start the Avengers with the Avengers choosing a new roster of Avengers. Well, this is issue 150, so there's been a long, long history, and that's one of the things they're going to do. Is Marvel did that every once in a while. They would do every couple of years, they would just do a catch you up to speed issue, an issue that just recaptured or retold all the stories of the Avengers. True, especially hot coffee on plastic. Yep. True enough, but I like my Keurig. It's fast. Mileage may vary. Avengers Assemble. How you doing, Tony? It makes some sense that people would act differently when in public persona, especially if it involves a costume. Yeah. I mean, look at YouTube. Everybody's got different personalities when the cameras come on. Who came up with the name Avengers for the team? Was it Thor? No, it was I forget what one of them said we should come up with a name like the Avengers, and then Wasp said no, the Avengers. That's it. So I forget who it was. Maybe it was Ant-Man who said we should be a team like the Avengers, and then Wasp was like no, the Avengers, and that was it from issue number 1. All right, so I'm all caught up. So Thor's gonna quit the team. Oh no, like I predicted. Ads. No, not ads. I just wish my camera width was just a little bit better. But if I pull it back and you can see everything, then you don't really get a good crisp view. Ads. Oh no, not ads. And then we go to. Oh, yep. Okay. So the jerk, we're going to answer your question right over here. So now we're going to, back in time. So this Jack Kirby drawn some flashbacks. So here is it's kind of cool. They got so inside they're deliberating on who the roster is as drawn by George Perez. That was a difficult sentence for me to say. And then the flashback sequences are drawn by Jack Kirby. And again, so that is probably George Perez and one of the inkers, and it's probably Jack Kirby and the other inkers. That'll explain why there's 4 inkers. I don't know what I'm talking about. And I don't know enough about these inkers to pick who. I will say this. I'm about to issue blasphemy over here. Utter blasphemy. So get ready. Hold, cover your children's ears. I don't like Mike Royer's inks on Jack Kirby. I've been reading Commandy all morning, and I just don't like Mike Royer's inks on Jack Kirby. I'm sorry. Blasphemy. Almost every other inker is better. All right, let's get back to the comics. So they're talking about the first issue. If you remember, Loki messed up Hulk. He created illusion, so the rest of the Avengers went to take out the Hulk, and then they ended up forming a team. It backfired in Loki's face. So that's how they all formed. And then right over here it says, we should be something colorful, dramatic, like the Avengers. That's what the Wasp says. And then Ant-Man says, or nothing. That's it. So the Wasp came up with the name of the Avengers. Here's Iron Man in his golden skirt issue. And then in issue 2, he already had in issue 1 of Tales of Suspense, his first appearance, he had the lead looking gray armor. And then the next issue, they spray painted it gold. I guess it just didn't look good for whatever reason. So, what? That can't be. And now we're back to the present. Can't be. Thor's leaving. We've come and gone, but you're one of the mainstays of the team. And he's like, he says, I know that more fully than you, Janet, but while thou were ill, I did confront for the first time an obvious fact. I, the son of Odin, I alone, am nearly as powerful as ye others combined, though that hath been a great boon to the Avengers on diverse occasions. It has rendered me, in the English term, a big fish in a small pond. Wow, how arrogant. I have remained on the more than from vanity than need. Ye have prospered with me on other occasions, mayhaps in my heart of hearts I did not appreciate that. I am ever yours if the need for me is true, but till then, Iron Man, wilt thou remain? Yes, I've never thought otherwise. So Thor is to say, I'm too powerful for you guys. I'm too powerful. You don't, if I'm on the team, we don't need the rest of the team, he's saying. How arrogant. But then again, he is a god. Yeah, I appoint the interim chairman on the Avengers until proper elections may be held. Here, assume my place at the table's head. And then I love. So if anybody could see this, the word balloons are dotted. That indicates whispering. Oh, this is exciting, Hank. In a minute, they're going to ask me if I'm staying, and I'll give you just one guess what that answer is. Great. Just what I needed. Now be quiet and listen. So Hellcat's all excited. Beast is, respectfully, shut up. Well, the big guys are talking. Well, I guess we're just going to go on here like we sat in on plenty of Stark's. So I sat in plenty of Tony Stark's park meetings, but this isn't all expected. I'm sure we all respect Thor's decision. Did Thor leave? I don't even know. Did he leave? And as always been said, once Avenger, always Avenger. Still a friend, can't help but wish that nobody but the same. Okay. Anyway, next turn, Captain America. What about you, Cap? Are you staying with us? So Thor's left. Thor left the Avengers. So Iron Man is now temporary leader, and he's going to Captain America. Are you going to stay with us? And again, miniature cliffhanger. They're doing comics right. You got to turn the page to find the information. The pre-Avengers, we attack first. There you go. The Wasp is hella underrated. I asked because in the Teen Titans, it was Donna Troy who came up with the name. Okay. Was it? I don't remember the comics. I don't remember. Was it Donna Troy? But I mean, the Teen Titans were around in the 60s, so I would have to go all the way back to those issues and see. I don't remember that. But yes, I agree that Wasp is underrated. I've always liked Wasp as a character. Although I will admit, as much as I like Janet Van Dyne in the comics, my favorite version of Janet Van Dyne is the cartoon Avengers Assembled. They made her like flirty, fun, cute. They took all the best qualities of, let's face it, characters change over the decades. They took all of the best characteristics of the character over the decades, and they merged and made, I think, the best version of the Wasp. Really cool. Great costume design too. And that's one of the things about the Wasp is she's a fashion designer, so she's always redesigning her costume. So that works. Like, she's always changing up her looks. I'm not starting from issue number 1. No, I'm doing my favorite run of the Avengers, 150 to 200, maybe a little past 200. Just like the X-Men, I'm not going to be doing every issue of the X-Men. The Sunday comics, I started at Giant Size X-Men number 1, and I'm probably going to go to like X-Men 150. But no, I'm not starting it because, quite frankly, there's a lot of bad issues in the first 150 issues. This 150, this is probably the worst issue of the group of this chunk. So yeah, this is, I'm just doing it. And then I'd also like to do the Fantastic Four, same kind of thing. Maybe I might even start with a Fantastic Four like 150 and just go, because you could go from Fantastic Four 150 literally to the next 100 issues. They're all good. They're all so good. But yeah, these next 50 issues, in my opinion, is some of the best Avengers comics you'll ever read. So I'm not starting at issue 1 because it's not that great. It's just not that great. Of course, we all know who came up with the name of the X-Men. Yes, it was Xavier, right? So let's turn the page. Oh no, an ad. One of my favorite spaceship designs of all time, Space 1999, the Eagles. I've always wanted that toy. Always wanted that toy as a kid. I recently rewatched the first season of Space 1999. It's a slog. There's some good stuff, but there's some awful stuff. But the set designs and the equipment and this, the spaceships, like everything except the stories. And what's her name? Barbara Bain. Barbara Bain is like a walking piece of wood. She has the emotional range of my mug, and not as hot. Delicious. Let's turn the page. So now we're back in the past. They're talking about Avengers number 4, where they find Captain America in frozen in the ice. And by this point, Iron Man's changed his costume. Ant-Man's become Giant Man. And then issue 5, they're fighting the Hulk. Issue 9, it's the first appearance of Wonder Man. Look, I can't believe the comics got it wrong. He's not black. Oh, it's unfocused. Let me stop the screen, stop the camera, and restart the camera to get the focus back. There we go. It must have been my hand, but look at that. That's Wonder Man. I can't believe Stan Lee and Jack Kirby got him wrong. He's a white guy. So the Masters of Evil created Wonder Man. He was like Simon Williams was the head of a industrial corporation that was rivaled for Tony Stark, but Tony Stark kept beating him out. So he was just like, I gotta defeat that Tony Stark. I can't defeat him in a fair business way. So the Masters of Evil give him powers. He turns into Wonder Man, beats the crap out of the Avengers, and then at the last minute he's like, I can't believe I'm turning into this guy, and basically turns against the Masters of Evil, and then he dies. But they bring him, or does he? We'll get to that. We'll get to that. So as of right now, he's still dead. Then Rick Jones leaves. Look at this horrible costume that Giant Man gets. Oh, God, that is just an awful, awful costume. And then, so now they're talking about issue 16. what do we do now? The dialogue is just terrible. And so, like, we need more people in the Avengers. We got Giant Man, Wasp, and Iron Man, and all of a sudden they open the door, and what do they got? They got Hawkeye showing up. Dun dun dun. They're gonna deal with Hawkeye. So this is not Hawkeye's first appearance. His first appearance was in Iron Man. Oh, I almost forgot the chat. Jim Shooter's run on the Avengers. Not yet. Not yet. This is pre-Shooter, I think. Right? Is this pre-Shooter? Yeah, this is Archie Goodwin. I think we're getting real close to Jim Shooter, or unless they just didn't mention the editor-in-chief in the credits. Xavier came up with the name because it's all about him. Yeah. So now we got just this. Who stands like this? Like completely off balance. It looks cool, but in reality, that's just like a stance that nobody would stand like that. You just easily get knocked over. Oh, did I miss a page? No, I thought. So now we got I came as a friend, not as an enemy. I wish to join the Avengers. I never intended to be an outcast. You an Avenger? And they're like laugh at it. So now we have a flashback in a flashback. This is to Iron Man 57 when he's fighting Iron Man. I believe you, Hawkeye, but the other Avengers must also accept you as the membership. So I'm going to prove my worth. So this is how you prove your worth to join the Avengers. You capture their butler, tie him up, and shoot arrows at him. That'll teach them that your intentions are pure. That's only a sample. So he takes out his blindfold. He takes out his tied wrists, his ankles, all with 3 arrows. You got me. And then I love this. I'm sold on this guy. How about you, Wasp? And she goes, va 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 voom. I mean, yeah, he's in. She was always boy happy. The timing is perfect, and that's part of the reasons why Hank Pym adopted the Yellow Jacket persona, because he was like dull. He was like a dull scientist, and Wasp was always like trying to get a reaction out of him, and he never got the reaction, and she kind of like left him. So he dressed up as Yellow Jacket, became a little bit more dashing, more aggressive, and then basically wooed her, and she didn't know that it was Hank Pym, and then took off the mask. I'm everything you've ever wanted. Yay. Meanwhile, under the sea, we got Submariner going crazy, ready to attack. We got some Jack Kirby, like almost Asian looking Submariner. And then we got Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver. Look, they're looking for replacements to the Avengers. This could be our chance, sister. Because even at the beginning, even at the first appearance of Scarlet, I always say Black Widow, or I mean Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, the way they spoke, they were never truly villainous. It was like they were press ganged into Magneto's Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. And hey, Brian Christow's here. Hey, what's up? How you doing, Brian? Brian is the author of a wonderful comic called Six Gun Gorilla. I really, really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it so much. I asked him if I could do an Easter egg in an upcoming story, and he said, okay. I sent you the script, Brian. You can approve it if you want. John, refresh my memory. Didn't Iron Man's armor run out on 2 power packs on his hips? His chest unit wasn't a power source. Just kept his heart beating. Yes and no. Okay. You see these? Sometimes they were the power source. Sometimes that was the power source. Like at one point, I think you're right. I think Stan Lee made those the power sources, and then other writers just changed it. Like Marvel was pretty good as far as like the grand continuity, and pretty lousy at the small continuity, if that makes sense. So I remember, like, depending upon the needs of the story, those were the power sources, and then this was also, sometimes that was like a big canon. Most of the times it was just like a solar thing that accepted solar radiation, solar light, and then kept his heart beating. because I remember a few times he got punched right there, and that took him out. He's like, my heart, my heart, you know. And then other times he reverse engineered it to fire like a solar flare. But yes, big answer, yes. Small answer is sometimes it changed because either the writers didn't know or needs of the story, and it didn't matter. You know what I mean? That's one of the things when you have 70 writers over 80 years is things do change. But as far as, yeah, yes. So here we go. We are going to the next page. I love this what do you call it, headdress on the Scarlet Witch. And I also got a kick out of the fact that he's called Quicksilver, and he mostly wears green. I don't know why. It works for me. Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch. And I gotta say, I've always loved Scarlet Witch. I've always loved Quicksilver. And you'll see why in this run. In this run, you will fall in love with the Scarlet Witch. She is the Jean Grey of the Avengers. You know, the beautiful, powerful female that just all bad things happen to. But to me, she's more likable than Jean Grey. And I'm hoping, you know, when I settle on a proper time, that you'll actually see why. But she's not magic, or at least she wasn't magic. I know now she's, you know, Miss freaking Wicca woman, you know, all powerful Mary Sue. But at this time, she was a mutant, and her mutant caused a probability field, and that probability field caused bad luck to happen. She didn't control it. She just pointed at you, and bad luck happened to you. Like she pointed to the beast, the wall that he's walking on collapses. It wasn't the impossible. It didn't turn into slugs. It collapsed. The improbable happened. And I think that is such a cool power. Later on, she started to refine it that she could give good luck. She could manipulate the probability because, you know, power creep happens. But I don't have a problem with superheroes fine-tuning their abilities and getting a little bit better. So she could, you know, if she wanted to, she could give you good luck. If she wanted to, she could give you bad luck. That was it. That was it. They just called her a witch because it's a cool descriptive name that kind of fits, you know, Scarlet Witch, you know, and she wore red, but whatever. Now it's all prophecies and Wicca and, you know, feminism and all nonsense. And her brother was just fast. Just cool. Just cool. And I love that. Now she does all. So just as a, like, that's the origin of Mary Sue. Mary Sue, she has a few powers. My character, Mary Sue, who is in issue 2 of Heroic Tales, she can manipulate probabilities. Now, the issue that you saw, she doesn't know she has powers. And she used her grand power. Her grand power. So Mary Sue could manipulate probabilities. She could point at you and give you bad luck, or she could point at you and give you good luck, or whatever. You know, issue 2, you don't know that. She doesn't know that. So I've been purposely. But she could also, you know, through a grand effort, change the past. You know, it's like if something happens, she could create the possibility that something else happened, but she doesn't change the consequences. So if you slip and fall over here and you break your neck, you know what I mean, she could change the possibility that you didn't slip and fall, you know, and whatever, you know. So and then that guy who didn't slip and fall and break his neck, next thing you know, he becomes the next Hitler and genocides everybody. You know what I mean? Like so she's like, first off, she doesn't know she has that power in this issue, but you'll see she's reluctant to use it because she's like, I don't know the consequences of using this grand power. She's also pretty intelligent, and there's other V&V powers that she has. If you ever, you know, if you get the character card, you'll see what powers she actually has. But anyway, Mary Sue is me redoing Scarlet Witch the proper way, because everything I do is the proper way. And I'll finish these 2 pages. So here is her debuting in the X-Men, you know, and now they're still talking about one of the first. This is Avengers 17 around when they announcing new members, you know, and it's kind of cold that Hawkeye people are like, wasn't he a villain? Didn't you fight this guy? And Iron Man's you know, stating his reputation on the fact. And at this point, Hank Pym Giant Man is stuck at 10 feet tall, because that's one of the things I do like about Stan Lee is he gives all the heroes a weakness. Iron Man's weakness at this time, he had a few weaknesses. His heart. The more he exerted himself, the more power he used in his Iron Man suit. He didn't have big buckets of power. So that was pretty cool. Hawkeye, he was just a guy with a bow and arrow. Giant Man was stuck at 10 feet. And the Wasp, she didn't really have a weakness, but she wasn't that powerful to begin with. She shrunk down to the size of a wasp and shot like little stings at you. Yeah, but I do like the Wasp. Shrinking is a very, very underrated power. Brian Christou says, totally honored by that Easter egg. Cool. Brian has read a few of my scripts. He's given me some pointers. That's how much I admire his writing. So please check out Six Gun Gorilla. Remember when the Avengers had 50 members and Henry Gyrich had to come in and sort them out? Yeah, Avengers 180, 181. I remember where I was when I read them. I'm not going to talk about them now because 31 weeks from now I'll get to it. The brother's not magic fast. He doesn't have sorcery speed. What a ripoff. I know. He Quicksilver has been changed a lot. Like he's like Stan Lee. He tries to give like logical limits to his character. So Quicksilver wasn't as fast as the Flash. Like he didn't have to worry about friction and stuff like that. They settled his costume unstable molecules, which is brilliant, but I just wish they named it something else. Because to me, anytime you say unstable molecules, all I could think of is like, dude, you're radioactive. But all their costumes are unstable molecules, so they deal with their powers. You'll see in Patriarch number 1, I have my version of unstable molecules. You'll see. Anyway, Hawkeye doesn't get a magic bow. No, that's why Hawkeye is my favorite comic book archer. Is he, the pressure that he puts on himself to train to be good. A few times he gives these like inner monologue speeches about like I'm just a guy who shoots arrows. I got to be the best. I'm constantly and then he gets swagger and like tells off Iron Man and Thor, and he's just a cool character. Second is Green Arrow, but if you pick Green Arrow first, that ain't gonna bother me. Let's turn the page. So this comic is, like I said, this is the worst. This is probably a bad. It's 150, so I'm starting here because it's a good round number, and it's a good refresher on the history of the Avengers. But it's the worst in these 50 series. Why? Because I think it's just clip show the comic book. So now, he's not stuck, so he shrinks down to normal size. I thought this was when he was stuck, but look at this horrible costume. Come on, that's just the worst. Captain America and Rick Jones are off doing God knows what. Who cares? There's no comment, so I will just continue. Check this out. This is the Marvel's roster. This is a subscription, so you can cut this out, mail it in. How much was the subscription here? 12 issues for $3.50. Canadian, add $1.50. Foreign, add $2. So, but listen to this roster of Marvel comics. Amazing Spider-Man, Avengers, Captain America, Captain Marvel, Conan, Daredevil, Defenders, Doctor Strange, Fantastic Four, Howard the Duck, Incredible Hulk, Invaders, Iron Man. So I collected all of those. Now, Marvel Tales was the first comic I didn't collect. Why? Because it was reprints of Spider-Man. Marvel Tales was reprints of Spider-Man. Marvel Team Up, I collected that. That was Spider-Man for somebody else. Marvel 2-in-1, that was the Thing. As a kid, I used to call it Marvel Thing-in-1. Master of Kung Fu, I didn't collect. Not because I just couldn't find it. It was like these Power Man, which later became Power Man and Iron Fist. I didn't collect it because I couldn't find it. Thor, I got. Tomb of Dracula, I wasn't interested in monsters. I had to be superheroes. And then Spidey Super Stories. I collected Spidey Super Stories, and I hated them, but I was such an anal retentive kid that I had to collect it because it was Marvel superheroes. Oh, let me see. I did not collect Conan because it wasn't superheroes. So I got all of the original superhero comics except Marvel Tales because it was reprints. Oh, at first I thought it was saying Conan and Howard the Duck were on the Avengers. No, no, no. This is an ad. This is an ad. This is an ad. So let's turn the page. Oh no, more ads. Why is this man smiling? Because he's crazy. Crazy was a Marvel's humor magazine. It was oversized. It was direct competition to Mad magazine. There was Mad, Crazy, and Cracked. You know, and it was funny because even though Crazy was Marvel, my house collected Mad. My older brother got Mad magazine. I've always had Mad magazines in the house. We got Mad magazine, and the kid Scott down the road, he got Crazy, and Tommy Allen, he got Cracked. And you know, I joke around. We did like dancing gang fights, like West Side Story. It's like Mad was best. No, Cracked was best. No, you know, we didn't really fight, but we bickered like little kids. And you know, we swapped the comics, stuff like that. And for some reason, they always stayed at my house. My house was the black hole of comics. When comics came to my house, they didn't leave. They didn't leave. But that's the way it was back then. You just bought comics, you read them, you know, you left them in the park, kind of thing. Were the Spidey super stories bad? Yeah, they were written for like kindergartners, first graders, you know, kids learning to read. You know, now I find them charming, but at the time I was like, and I had to read it too, so I'd be like just angry reading it, you know, rather than just saving 40 cents or whatever. So now, you know, again, nothing great is happening. They're just recapping old Avengers stories. So, you know, filling in a few details. This is Captain America meeting the Scarlet Witch. So this is Tony Stark introducing Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver to Captain America, bringing him to Avengers Mansion. I'm not sure. I think this is just like retroactive continuity. Doesn't change anything. You know, well, I take it back then. It's just inserting details that we didn't know. Retroactive continuity is when they change the past. So when they do retroactive continuity, that is when, like, you know, El Smasho is the fourth son, and he takes a magic potion to become El Smasho, and then they've changed it to no, he was a scientist who, you know, used proton beams to become El Smash. Oh, it was a magic potion. You know, that's a retcon. You know, when they insert details that don't change anything, I'm cool with that as long as it makes sense. So now Captain America and Rick Jones are coming back from their mission. Again, this is just fill in the comic. No comment, so I'll just continue the page. You know, earn money, spare time. Look at all these ads. Mini bikes. Okay, anybody an old fart like me? Do you guys remember mini bikes? There was like a 2 or 3 year period where mini bikes were the coolest thing. Everybody had mini bikes. Everybody, you know, I remember riding mini bikes through the neighborhood. The cops would chase you, and we just go down somebody's backyard, you know, get away from the cops. It was fun. It was fun. So now Captain America and Rick Jones are coming back to the Avengers, you know, bringing us up to speed. What's going on? All these people here. There must be an attack. And boom, you know, this is the new Avengers, blah, 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 you know. So everybody's hanging out. So this is behind the scenes of issue 17. So Iron Man, Wasp, and Giant Man are leaving. So you got Captain America, Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, and Hawkeye. Why? Well, the story within the story is Janet Van Dyne and Hank Pym want time to be themselves. They're a married couple. Iron Man wants to go and, you know, work closer with Tony Stark. At that point, nobody knew he was Tony Stark. Thor already left to deal with stuff in Asgard, just like he's doing now. So Captain America is basically saddled with 3 ex-villains running the team. Why did Marvel do this? Because they wanted to showcase new characters. You know, Captain America kind of works as the leader, and they needed an established character to sell the comic. And now they have 3 other characters that they can hopefully build up their gravitas and whatever. But, you know, Iron Man, Thor is selling. I don't know if Ant-Man and the Wasp are still selling at this point, or Giant Man and the Wasp are selling at this point. I don't know. But, you know, so the Captain America Tales of Suspense is Captain America and Iron Man. The Hulk is Tales to Astonish. It was Hulk and Ant-Man and the Wasp, and then later they changed it to Hulk and Namor, right? Hulk and Namor, and then they still have Doctor Strange and Nick Fury over at Strange Tales. Oh, look at this, Captain America. The Red Skull is going to destroy the Washington Monument with the Cosmic Cube. But you know what? If you feed the Cosmic Cube a Twinkie, it won't do evil. So the Cube, I command you to pulverize Captain America. Delicious sponge. So the Cosmic Cube is actually thinking about delicious golden sponge cake. Obey me. The Cosmic Cube refuses to obey because it's enjoying the Hostess Twinkies. Smooth cream filling too. Yeah. And then Captain America's smiling, throwing Twinkies. And that's why Captain America is the best, because he understands the deliciousness of a Twinkie. Not like the Hulk, who likes fruit pies. Brian Bauer, you listening? Fruit pies are awful. So there you go. You mean you're breaking up the Avengers? How? And he goes, easy, old friend. We're merely taking a leave of absence. Don't forget, we've been part of the team longer than you, and everybody needs a rest sooner or later. So, so now we got Cap's Kooky Quartet, as they called them. So we got Captain America, Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, and Hawkeye. And I really think, I haven't really looked at this comic in a long time. I really think this issue was just, we gotta fill it in. We just gotta fill it in because literally nothing happens. The only thing that happened in this comic, besides a flashback, is Thor quit the Avengers. So Thor quits the Avengers. So next issue, the new Avengers lineup. So next issue is when it really happens. Again, this is the worst issue of these next 50 issues, but I had to start at 50, and then this was a good way to show you some of the Avengers history. So we got the Enchantress, we got Kang, the Executioner, Immortus, the Mole Man, and then we got Bullet Man, the Human Bullet, blasts into the G.I. Joe Super Adventure Team. So if you remember the G.I. Joes, the original G.I. Joes, I forget how tall they were. They were like 9 inches tall, 10 inches tall. And they were Army men guys. And they had the fuzzy heads, they had elastic bands holding the limbs together, and they were a lot of fun. And then I guess military guys started to fall out of favor after Vietnam, and they kind of started to mesh with superheroes. So they brought in Bullet Man and what's this guy? Mike Eagle Eye, G.I. Joe, Mike Power, and Atomic Man. So Atomic Man, he was like a cyborg, like a bionic man, and then they introduced Bullet Man, and it was slowly morphing into a super team. And then they just kind of disappeared. And then they came back as a 3.5-inch figure line with the Larry Hama comic. And boom, they've been top sellers ever since. Many happy landings and launchings. These were balsa wood planes. I remember these. And they had a trench on the bottom. And you pulled the rubber band back and you twisted the propeller, and it tangled up, it twisted the rubber band, and when it got to a certain point, you had like a little block, and you pulled the little blocker out, and the propeller, and the thing would just crash into a tree and break. A lot of fun. So there you go. That's Avengers 150. Again, this is the dullest issue of this group. This, next issue it'll pick up. It'll introduce the roster, and then things will happen. So here you go. That was dull. I understand that this was like the worst way to start, but I had to start at 150 because if I started at 151, I would have bothered me forever. So there you go. I don't know when I'm going to do this series. It looks like it because I'm on the schedule. I would have to do it at noon, and then I would have to do it at midnight. So what do you guys think? If I'm more likely to do it at midnight. So should I do Tuesday nights at midnight? Or should I do Saturdays? I was thinking of Saturdays at 10 a.m. just because I do Sunday comics at 10 a.m. on Sunday. So should I do Saturday 10 a.m.? Tell me in the chat. What do you guys think? But I would like to do this. I'd like to do less drama on Twitter and more comic book related content. Just talking about comics. All right. So, and I will continue talking while the chat is going. Two equally threatening villains, Kang and the Mole Man. I think Kang is a little bit more threatening than the Mole Man, but I love them both. So there you go. Are you not entertained? What did you think? This is the inaugural episode of Avengers Assemble 150, 25 cents. Got nothing else to say. You know, this is probably a bad time slot. I'm going up against the professionals, so all the real comic book fans are probably watching that. Maybe Saturdays. Yeah. You know, Saturday night, Saturday day. What do you guys think? What do you guys think? It'll probably bounce around a little bit until I find a home. So, all right. Looks like the comments are not really coming, so it's time to say goodbye, kids.